Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today, and I finally get to review something newer. Most of the stuff I talk about typically is older, when it comes to comics especially. But I finally got to review something new that I've been wanting to check out since I've heard so much about it. But to be honest with you, I'm going to have some controversial opinions about this. I'm not going to be able to fit into the grain on this. Um, Absolute Batman, right? This is volume 1, The Zoo. It's the first 6 issues of the storyline. It's about, 180 pages long. Scott Snyder's writing, of course, the guy who did the New 52 Batman stuff that I really mostly enjoyed until the Jim Gordon Batman crap. And Nick Dragotta, who, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not in love with his artwork. Not even here. There's a couple of cool panels. There's a lot of throwbacks to, like, The Dark Knight Returns. And those are very obvious. A lot of lightning strikes in the background as Batman drops from the sky. But a lot of the style of this comic, art-wise, I don't like, and I think it actually harms the book more than it helps it, to be honest with you. That's probably a very controversial opinion. I haven't heard anybody say that. So, I would love to hear your thoughts on that down below. So, getting to the actual book here, this whole Absolute Universe thing has now expanded off. I didn't know if DC All In, which is the new initiative they're doing, the new era, whatever, I didn't know if that was, like, gonna be secluded to just this, but now it's branching out, and I don't know if it's part of a plan that was always there, or if it was because of the result of Batman doing so well. But now you have, like, Absolute Wonder Woman and Absolute Superman and Green Lantern, all these big people. I think even Martian Manhunter has one, and that one sounded really, really weird. But the general idea to start with was that this is a whole nother, like, universe thing created by Darkseid somehow. I don't really understand what happened with that. The back of the book says something about some kind of fight he had with the Justice League. I don't know when that happened. Haven't read up to that yet in the regular canon of everything, so I don't know if there was an event that I missed out on or what. So I don't know about that. But when you pick up this book, you don't need to know that. It kind of just throws you into the mix of a new version of Batman. It is that dark and gritty stuff. For some reason, the people that I typically watched on YouTube that got me to finally trying Batman, like, for example, Court of the Owls, the beginning of Scott Snyder's old New 52 run, the people who hated that, and the people who still, to this day for me, trash talk that all over YouTube, I don't understand how they could hate that and love this. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's... To me, both are extremely clever. I really like Scott Snyder. I think the only thing I ever read otherwise from him, aside from these two properties, New 52 and this, is I think I read most of Dark Knight's Metal and hated it. But that was years ago. I'm willing to try it again, but I hated it when I rented it from the library ages ago. But I think he's a very clever writer. I think he has a lot of good ideas, and that's why I was so excited for this, because this was very controversial when it was coming out. Because, like, Batman was a lot more brutal here, but I guess getting to specifically Batman here, essentially what they did to kick off this universe, specifically with him, was that they were going to have a Batman who was not really poor, as far as I can tell, but he was, like, not rich at all. They changed up his origin a little bit. I'll get into that. He has really no money to work with to do all this Batman stuff. And again, there's a lot of Dark Knight Returns throwbacks in here. That's kind of nice. I did enjoy that, even though I don't even like Dark Knight Returns all that much. It's very Frank Miller-esque. More so than something like the Scott Snyder New 52 stuff or Dark Knight's Metal. Essentially, Bruce Wayne here, when he was a little boy, by the way, this volume, in case I forgot to mention, is called The Zoo. His origin story this time around is not like his parents being killed in a dark alley. Basically, there was a public mass shooting that happened while he was, I think, on a field trip or something. His dad is a teacher in this storyline, and his dad is murdered in front of him. And so Bruce still has his mom. Martha Wayne is still alive throughout the story. And when when we watch him become an adult and everything, he's been kind of crazy, a little bit dark and to himself ever since that happened with his dad. Very much like the typical Batman story, but also not. Because that absence of love that a parent gives you, that was cut short in regular Batman canon. It's not really the case here, because he has a mom here who has raised him and loves him, and he goes to visit her and has cereal in her house and soup in her house and stuff. And when this all happened to him too, his friends gathered around him, which, by the way, his friends here are people like Killer Croc before he becomes Killer Croc, Oswald Cobblepot, the Riddler. I always forget the Riddler's real name. It's Edward Nygma, right? Yeah, because Enigma. Catwoman, who wears, like, whatever to make her head look like cat ears. And I think there was one more I'm forgetting about. But anyway, Harvey Dent. Harvey Dent was one of his friends, too. And they kind of grew up still mostly close, you know? And I like how his friends crowded around him after his dad was killed. They kind of did this thing where it was like they didn't want to allow Bruce to be by himself, and they have stayed such good friends that even as an adult, no matter all the grief he's felt all of his life over his dad, they've still been with him. They still go and play cards together and stuff. It's not like they grew apart and all these people became villains all of a sudden. That's not how this went. So the idea here is to take everything and turn it on its head to be the complete opposite of what it used to be. But I'm seeing more and more of it not become that. There are some other big Batman villains. You're probably wondering, well, is the Joker a friend of his? The Joker's in here. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but what they do with the Joker, at least right now, in the first 6 issues, the very, very small, I mean like 2 pages that he might be a part of, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that. I really am. I hope it's good. I've heard nothing but good as this has gotten further and further in. I think it's like 12 or 13 issues in, something like that now. And it seems like people love it, but these issues are too expensive for me to be reading week to week. I think they're like $10 in hardcover, or not hardcover, but hard issues, physical. But like digitally, they're like $6, I think, and I'm not paying that. So, yeah. Let's talk about Batman himself. There's this weird thing with Bruce in this book. So, as an adult, again, he's not rich or anything. He's a construction worker, which is something neat to do. But when he becomes Batman, it's kind of the beginning here. This is kind of a year one to some extent, because he's showing up even in the daytime to stop like bank robberies and stuff. And people know about Batman's existence here, but they don't really know a ton about him because he's so new and up on the scene. People are finding out what he can do, what he can't do, and so are we because he's so new and he's not rich. What can he do? He has this weird mantra that he's always spouting about as the book goes on, about we have to build bigger. We have to build and build and build and be the biggest. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, Bruce? To me, it shows how actually crazy this particular version of Batman is. That it really, really delves into that for me personally. Maybe there's more that's going to be done with that psychosis here. I don't know. But he is more of a warrior than a martial artist, right? Than usual Batman. He's more of like a brutal, take everybody down as fast as possible. Not like, again, the karate Batman. He's not like that. He just beats the shit out of people. One of the things I gotta tell you here, I do not like, and I'm very much in the typical crowd with this, I don't like this version of Batman's design. I think it's ugly. I just can't stand it. It's part of the art issue to this. But like Batman, right? Batman is this big, humongous, hulking dude, and when Bruce isn't in the costume, he doesn't look like that to me. I don't know if that's supposed to be like a jokey reference to like actors who play Batman. Like, you know, Ben Affleck was huge in his Batman, you know, fitness. But like when he was in the costume, it was clearly padding and stuff. But he looked great. It didn't really matter to me. I don't know if this is supposed to be a throwback to that, but it's part of that mantra of building bigger and being the biggest and so on and so on. But on his chest, they have this new Batman emblem. It makes sense within the logic of this comic. I don't like it. It's basically a metal plate that he can remove and put on like a little, I thought it was a pair of pliers, but then sometimes it looks like a handle, but maybe it's just misdrawn and it is a pair of pliers. I don't know. But it basically detaches this bat symbol into a battle axe. A fucking battle axe. And Batman's like cutting people's hands off and stuff if they attack him with like their own weapons, like knives and stuff. Yeah, so this is like a very different type of Batman. When I say it's brutal, it is very brutal. He has bat ears on his mask that look kind of nice, and then I found out he can pull them off and they're knives, and they actually make smaller Batman ears. They look more like the Dark Knight Returns and like, Ben Affleck Batman. And that's kind of cool. I kind of dig that, to be honest with you. That's a cool little thing, but they're knives, and he can use them, and he stabs people a lot. He stabs a lot of people in this first 6 issues. Like, he doesn't really have a traditional cape, as far as I can tell, as far as I remember. I finished this yesterday, so some of the details involving the cape that wasn't like, in the main focus of the storyline here. Because there's so much trauma building in the book, and new trauma building at that. Batman has, like, strands of a cape. But they're not really, like, regular strands. They're, like, kind of hooks and stuff that he can use to, like to hang and to crawl and stuff. And I don't know how much I like that. When I say crawl, I don't mean, like, Dr. Octopus crawl. At least not yet. Maybe that's a thing in later issues, but, like, not right now. I don't really like that, to be honest with you. It's not really something I think is all that great. The Batman design is just not for me. Like, if he moves a certain way, and, like, he also screams a lot, Batman also cusses in here, but they censor it out like they do typically in comics. That's kind of bizarre. But if he moves a certain way, spikes come out of his shoulders and his back on his costume. And, like, he shanks people a lot with that. If people try to come up from behind to attack him, he takes them out that way. I don't know, man. This feels like I'm definitely going to keep reading, because I feel like there's a lot of potential here. And to be honest with you, despite my nitpicks and complaints about this book, especially with that artwork being so bad, I mean, it's not the worst artwork I've ever seen. It's sort of kind of okay for this story. I'm liking the change-ups enough that I want to keep going, that I'm not just going to drop this. I'm going to keep reading this. I've heard the Wonder Woman absolute line is good too. I know the first trade of that's out, and I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't look too horrible. I haven't read enough Wonder Woman in my life though, so I don't know if I want to start with some kind of variation that I wouldn't completely get. But the Superman one I'm totally down for. I can't wait to check that out at some point, because obviously I know enough about him I could jump into that. Let's talk about Alfred, right? Well, let me get to the Batmobile, and then I'll get to Alfred. So there is a Batmobile in here, right? And at first, I hated it. I thought it was the worst Batmobile ever. A lot of people complain about the Nolan Tumbler, right? This is a million times worse. Now, this is very Dark Knight Returns. Basically, since Batman, Bruce Wayne, is a construction worker during the daytime, he has, like, a dump truck. He has a giant Tonka-looking dump truck. We could call it the Tonkmobile, if you want. And it's like 3 stories tall, dude. That's the Batmobile. He can just decimate buildings and stuff, just drive through shit. Now, mind you, again, Dark Knight Returns throwback, like I said. But this one can also, like, shrink down into, like, a smaller, cooler looking Batmobile from what I remember of, like, the one time it did that in this 6 issues. And that smaller Batmobile, I kind of liked. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of dug that. But I didn't get a great look at it most of the time, but what I saw of it, thought it was kind of cool. Let's get over to Alfred, though. This is something I think needs to be brought up. So Alfred looks like Ra's al Ghul. But he's also, like, he's still, like, an assassin for hire type of dude, I think. I don't think he's just, like, a military spy guy. I could be wrong. Maybe that is what he is. He's talking to, like, some kind of elite agency of some sort. But he's supposed to go into Gotham and kill the Batman. That's what he's supposed to do. Because he's so new and he's interfering with things. And our big villain here, who's Black Mask this time around, which, by the way, the Black Mask helmet is fucking awful. I hate it. It's like just gray teeth around his, like, chin and stuff, and then, like, a Mysterio helmet that's black and, like, tinted around his head. I hate that. I think it's the worst version of Black Mask I've ever seen. And he's real lanky, too. But Alfred again, since Batman's not rich, he doesn't have a butler, right? Alfred he kind of begins to find appeal in Batman by the things that he can do, and there's kind of this almost manga anime appreciation of each other, that they respect each other, but not really that they're friends or anything. Even by the end of the book, they just have this mutual respect of each other's skills and nature, and I think that's kind of cool. I like that. Jim Gordon is like running for mayor, and Martha Wayne is like one of his like sidekicks. I figure they're gonna do something with that, like a relationship thing at some point, probably. I don't think they mentioned that Gordon has a wife and kids or anything, so maybe I'm wrong. But that doesn't mean cheating can't happen. I mean, remember, year one happened once upon a time, so if we're referencing Frank Miller as much as we are, we could do that in here, and that would be an interesting thing to do with this new version of Batman. But anyway, I mean, I think this book, there's enough here that I would recommend it to literally anybody. You could jump in as a brand new person to comics and get a lot out of this, especially the newer storyline stuff. But the art, like I said, really harms the book for me. That's just a personal complaint. Maybe everybody else doesn't have that issue, that's why they're not saying anything about it. But it bugs me a lot, so it really puts me off from this book quite a bit. But it was a solid read. It wasn't built down with all of these tons of details about stuff that didn't matter, or tons of deep, wordy conversations that didn't matter. There's a lot of emotion here. There's a lot of moments that you feel for Bruce. This new version of Bruce, I think, is one of the most relatable Bruce Waynes ever put into comics, and I like it for that. So I can recommend it to literally anybody. Comic fan, non-comic fan. I think everybody will get something out of this. It's just not amazing, in my opinion. I think it could be. It could get there. But right now, I'm real kind of hands-off with it, to be honest with you. So anyway, what do you think about Absolute Batman Volume 1, The Zoo? What do you think about Absolute Batman? Or this whole DC all-in Absolute line anyway, for any of the characters? What do you think about this stuff? Do you think it was a good move? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's good? What do you think? I'd love to hear all that down below. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.